What does FNAF Help Wanted hide from the player off camera in the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and Dark Room areas? Help Wanted is a FNAF virtual experience that walks the player through the many locations we've explored in the franchise's past, including the haunted halls of Fazbear's Fright and some pretty spooky games of Red Light, Green Light. Today, we'll be taking a look at these nightmarish simulations in a different light, as we break down how this game functions behind the scenes, as well as seeing some things we're definitely not supposed to, including, whatever the heck is happening here. There's lots to cover, so I hope you enjoyed this dive into Help Wanted's FNAF 3 area. Really quick, I'll recap this area so we're all refreshed on how it works. So arriving at Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction, we're stationed in the security office where we're surrounded by 3 different screens, each serving a unique purpose. Directly in front of us is the primary surveillance system that overlooks the main attraction areas, and attached to the controls is a button that plays Balloon Boy's sound effects. This is used to lure Springtrap, this level's only life-threatening animatronic, into the map's various rooms and away from our always exposed office. On the right side is the ventilation camera system, which contains a button used to seal off the vents, preventing Springtrap from reaching the player through them. Finally, there is the maintenance panel on our left, and this is used to fix the various errors that we can encounter throughout the night. We must use each of these tools to keep Springtrap at bay, while also avoiding the Phantom Animatronics as they appear within the attraction. They are non-lethal, but being jump scared by them results in our cameras and tools being broken. Recap aside, we can explore this building and take a look at some things we're not usually able to see up close. This entire map is full of decorations and props from previous entries in the series, including a box full of animatronic pieces that is stored inside of our office. Inside this box, there are 3 masks, including Freddy, Mangle, and Toy Bonnie, as well as a few severed arms and Bonnie's guitar. What's odd is that there are also some paper scraps down inside, but I'm not sure why they're floating here, considering you'll never be able to see them. I had looked throughout the entire facility, but I was unable to locate Springtrap inside. And that's because when the night begins, he is actually stored far beneath the map until he is activated. Taking a closer look at his model, we'll see that it's a lot scarier than you'd first realize. The costume itself is pretty worn, and because of the tears in the exterior, we can see some of the metallic parts that make up the suit. Moving the camera inside of the model though, we can see the spring lock mechanism is fully modeled inside, and it's shrouded in what looks like human entrails. Glorious? No, gruesome. It gets even more gruesome though, because although it's hard to see, looking inside the mask, we will find the rotted remains of William Afton's head. This particular model is really creepy, and the minigame as a whole is even scarier, knowing what lurks inside the Springlock suit. Now speaking of Springtrap, we can see how they function within this level as well. So he'll be activated on the second night and begin his assault on the player. And as you can see, the moment he is called into the map, he will instantly warp from the void into one of the hallways. Once there, we can observe him moving between locations, as he slowly walks forward and then snaps into his idle pose. These walk cycles are even more frightening with the post-processing effects enabled, as their glowing eyes can be seen peering through the darkness. Next, let's have a look at the Phantom Animatronics. So the way these enemies work is completely different than Springtrap, because instead of approaching the player through the hallways, they'll load into a static location, and we have to avoid looking at them to prevent being jump scared. So, just like Springtrap, before they appear on any of our cameras, Balloon Boy can be found beneath this map. They are technically active at this point, and will remain out of bounds until they are meant to appear in our cameras. But how exactly does that work? Well, the instant they are called into the map, they'll simply be warped in their current state directly in front of a camera. You can see here that they are literally just floating right in the corner T-posing and staring at the wall. Because of how closely they are placed to the camera though, only half of their face is visible on screen. If we do not swap to a different camera in time, we will ultimately be jump scared. And the moment this happens, the Balloon Boy that is currently visible on our monitor will be instantly warped away from the camera, and a separate jump scare model is loaded in that will then lunge at the player. From another perspective, we can take a look around and see how they move with us due to the model being tied directly to the player camera. And it's pretty hilarious. Moving the camera beneath the floor during this animation, you'll find the original Balloon Boy has been moved back to their idle location. Phantom Foxy will load into our office just behind the box of animatronic parts, and upon closer inspection, they're clipping through the wall for some reason. I'm not sure why he chooses to put his head through a wall when he's standing right next to the door, but that's none of my business. Must be flexing his ghostly powers. Phantom Foxy will remain here for quite a while actually, and can only jump scare the player if we look directly at him. Now this is where things get a bit odd, because when this is triggered, we can see that their jump scare model is this white, strangely shaped outline. At first I thought this was due to the game's lighting being disabled, but with the processing turned back on, it is still the same in appearance. On night 3, we can head underneath the map, where we can see that Mangle is now stored here as well. Only they're placed in the same location as Balloon Boy, which results in this strange spider-like fusion of animatronics. When Mangle becomes visible on our ventilation cameras, you can see that they've been moved from their idle position out of bounds and are now placed in front of camera 12. Heading over there, with the camera reveals that half their body is clipping beneath the map, but we never see it due to the angle in which this is typically viewed. When Mangle successfully attacks a player, we can see that their jump scare model is rotated upside down when it's moved to the player, and they'll snap their jaws at us before unloading completely. Among these enemies, there's also Freddy, who will walk past this large window in our office before disappearing after reaching the end of the hallway. Taking a closer look at them, we'll realize that unlike the other Phantoms, the majority of Freddy's endoskeleton is still intact and is plainly visible to the player. And it looks pretty cool. They will slowly make their way down this hall, and as they reach this corner here, they will very quickly sink into the floor. What I found kind of strange is that Freddy and Foxy are not stored out of bounds like the others, and when they sink through the floor, they will unload completely. Now, something else I found a bit weird is that Phantom Freddy's jump scare does not function how it's meant to. So when looking at Freddy, there's a chance that his scare will trigger, but it does not use the appropriate model. Instead, it will use the same white outline as Foxy's. In this shot, you can see both of them being triggered one after the other, and they are practically identical. This is apparently a bug that was never fixed in the non-VR version of the game. And to my understanding, his jump scare works as intended in the VR version. Heading into night 5, this area's blacklight level, Springtrap becomes a lot more aggressive, and the building is now on fire. If you look to the restaurant though, it is pretty much unchanged, aside from the lighting now being a reddish-orange color. But there are no visible fires anywhere within the building itself. Inside the vents on our right, there are some particles floating around that look like embers, and beyond the vents themselves is a video of some flames playing on loop. It's just floating out of bounds, and we can actually see it from within our office. So I'm not certain how I caused it, but at some point the game's logic had been broken, and Springtrap was completely unloaded. The Phantoms still attacked the office, but nothing needed to be done about it because there was no real threat present, meaning the rest of Night 5 was a breeze. That's it for the FNAF 3 area though, so let's take a look at the dark rooms. So to quickly recap these levels, the dark rooms have you play a handful of unique minigames, all of which take place in complete darkness. In the Plush Trap game, our goal is simple. We have 90 seconds to flash Plush Trap with our light when they're sitting atop of the X in front of us. Only they won't move when our flashlight is on, so we have to rely on sound in order to catch them at the right moment. The Balloon Boy minigame functions the same way, only they are a bit faster and moving towards the player. Next, there is the Plush Baby game, and here you use a flashlight to ward off an army of circus baby stuffed animals as they endlessly approach you. I know what you're thinking, but trust me, it's scarier than it sounds, as failing to do so will result in a jump scare. We must survive until 6 AM, shining our light on the plush babies until they disappear, while also trying to conserve our flashlight battery, which recharges over time. Finally, there is the Funtime Foxy minigame, and in this level, we're forced to navigate this massive room as we aim to reach the door to parts and service. Instead of a flashlight, we're given a flash beacon in this level that will light up the area surrounding the player temporarily, and doing so is the only way to locate Funtime Foxy. Walking into them results in an instant death, so we have to avoid them as we progress through this map. So heading back to the Plush Trap game, this entire area is a lot less spooky when we see what's happening. Now, moving the camera around, you will immediately notice, in addition to this map, that we aren't typically able to see, which is the bedroom and house area that you can play in during the FNAF 4 minigame. A majority of the section's assets are missing, and we can see there is some furniture sitting just out of bounds as well. I'm not certain as to why this was added onto the Plush Trap level though, but if you know why, then let me know in the comments. Heading back to the main gameplay area, Plush Trap is sitting on a chair at the end of the hallway, and you can see that when they move, they will quickly climb down and sit on the floor. I found this pretty cool, because a majority of players would never be able to see these animations in their entirety because of how dark these games are. Plush Trap then runs into the room on the right, where he is then warped far beneath the level, and he will remain here until his next movement. The rooms surrounding the player are completely empty, and we can see that when Plush Trap peeks around the corner, he will instantly teleport back into the play area. What's funny is that after ducking into this room, their body becomes super contorted. As some of you may recall, the same thing happens in the glitch attraction, when Vanny's peeking around the corner in the ventilation area's title screen. Plush Trap will remain in this twisted pose until they move back into the hallway, where they'll once again run off camera into one of these empty rooms. Taking a look at this level's blacklight variant is mostly the same, except there are a handful of toys scattered throughout the hallway alongside some decorations that I believe appeared in FNAF 2. Nightmare Balloon Boy functions mostly identical to Plush Trap, except he's a bit faster when navigating the hallway. When peeking out at the player, their head violently shakes, which is super unsettling to watch. And yes, they also get twisted up when moving around the corner. The blacklight variant of this knight fills the entire play area with balloons, making it a lot harder to see where Balloon Boy is hiding. Jumping ahead, we can take a look at Plush Baby's minigame, and I was mostly curious what happens when they're scared off by the flashlight at the beginning of the night. So there are 3 Plush Baby stuffed animals just sitting in front of this vent, and as we shine our flashlight at them, they'll begin to shake around before disappearing into the vent. Viewing this from the other side reveals that they unload the moment they pass through the grate. As for the map itself, it is packed full of FNAF-inspired merchandise, and though there are a few doors surrounding us, none of them actually lead anywhere, nor does the vent above the player. Something you may have missed is that directly in front of the player, there is a small white cube sticking through the floor. You can actually see this cube during regular gameplay, as it's just placed on the floor directly in front of the player. In the blacklight version of this game, each of the stuffed animals we see in this map are replaced with Plush Baby. Although the enemies themselves have been replaced with scrap Plush Baby, it's still super hard to locate them before they jump scare you, even when all the lights are on. Also, the player is just a floating flashlight sticking through a door. Glorious! Finally, there is a Funtime Foxy minigame, and as you can see, this map is actually pretty huge. There are tons of pipes above the player that extend upwards out of sight, and because the level is so dark, there was no need for a ceiling either. Now, I expected this level to be pretty easy with the lights on, but I couldn't have been more wrong. So when we start this level, Foxy can be seen appearing behind a door before it recloses. But from another angle, you can see that they're unloaded completely right after this animation is finished. What makes things difficult in this level is that Foxy will only appear when our flashlight beacon is used, meaning even with the lights on, they're still incredibly hard to avoid. The second we use our light, they'll load in, and after it goes dark, they'll vanish once more. Their jump scare is also pretty terrifying, as their faceplate opens up to reveal the nightmarish endoskeleton inside. Heading into the blacklight mode, this level is made a lot harder by all the animatronics blocking our path. The room is now full of circus babies, Funtime Freddys, Funtime Foxies, and even a couple of endoskeletons. Apparently these endos belong to Neon Bonnie, and as you can see, running into them results in their jump scare being triggered. On this night, the Foxy that we typically face has been replaced by a reskinned variant of their model, who I believe is called Lolbit. And here, you can see these 2 animatronics standing side by side. Finally, I was curious what would happen if we placed the player on top of this map and then tried to finish the level. And for a while, it seemed to be working. That is, until Lolbit managed to jump scare me from way up here. Not all is lost though, because I had one more trick up my sleeve, and so I just teleported the player to the end of the level, finishing the night pretty much instantly. And with that, we've reached the end of the FNAF 3 and Darkroom levels in Help Wanted. We're not quite done with this game yet, as there is still quite a bit of content left for us to cover, so make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss my next video. Thanks for watching, and cheers!